There's a good boy, Chain Chomp. He's a good boy. Well, despite the fact that this game calls him a different name, but that's besides the point. Hey, what's up everybody? It is I am the one and only Tiana here once again, and I'm back for yet again for the likes of the Mexi Toys videos here. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back for some more of Let's Play of The Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening DX for the Game Boy / Game Boy Color, to be more specifically the Game Boy Color version as what we're playing. So, last time we have basically managed able to tackle for not one, but 2 dungeons in one in particular episode. So I think that was actually a well accomplished things itself, I suppose, ever since enduring the forms of in Zelda 1. Except the fact that we don't need to worry about the forms of that stiff attack movements and all that stuff though, because chances are though, everything else gets a little bit more relative at this point. So today, for this video, is the fact that we're about to be able to continue things on, and before we get to the forms of the, the next dungeon, we need to take care of the forms of some, other bits first. So, like, for example, since we've already did manage to complete the second dungeon, so because of this though, basically, we need to able to return this particular Chain Chomp fella into the actual owner. So because of that though, and also we've actually claimed ourselves 50 rupees as you can tell, and of course we do need to able to navigate through this particular mysterious forest while trying to able to actually just you know, deal with more enemies and stuff like that. So yeah, you probably get the idea about the actual specific topics worth noting for. So anyways though, so let's just go ahead and keep on moving along, and then as far as I can tell, is the fact that I think, relatively speaking, I think we should probably take care of the forms of some of these continuations of the forms we're trying to able to obtain. Certain of those seashells or secret seashells every once in a while, because we've only got one of them at the moment. So relatively speaking though, hopefully we'll able to get a chance that we will definitely try to able to obtain them. But first off, let me go ahead and just toss those little skull rocks and able to claim another piece of heart. And that way, if you manage to complete all 4 of those pieces, much like the forms of how it does it on, you know, A Link to the Past, basically though, your heart container will increase. So now, we actually got about 6 heart containers. So, yeah, things get a little bit more relative at this point, especially noticeable in the, you know, the future games in the series as a result. So, yeah, that's pretty much as far as I can talk about. So, anyway, so let's just go ahead and go down here, and I don't think there's anything else down there as far as I'm usually concerned with, because I keep thinking about another area as far as I would like to point things out, but anyways, let's go ahead and keep utilizing the actual power bracelet, so just in case we will definitely go see something for this point right here, such as this area right here. So if we're able to actually use the, you know, power powder, basically, or the magic powder I should say. Hey kid, you woke me up from a fine nap, thanks a lot. But now I will get my revenge. Are you ready? Yes? I'll let you carry more magic powder. Hee hee. Are you ready? Close your eyes people, because seizure reducing. Actually, no way. There aren't any seizure reducing. Okay, I wasn't expecting that. So now, as you can see on that particular counter right here from that particular magic powder, we're able to actually now carry up to 40 of them. So that way it allows me to able to actually use some more magic powder for the sake of the forms of later parts throughout the game. So because I believe, if I recall correctly though, there are 3 of these things, specifically if you try to come across in those specific rooms like that. So but relatively speaking though, that will help you out, especially noticeable because, oh, there's another secret seashell right there onto that particular treasure. So, how's that for that one right here? So, oh yeah, something's worth mentioning. I do apologize for that particular commentary, gets a little bit, iffy at this point, because I got something stuck in my throat, you see. So, forgive me if, I managed able to bodge up my, croaky throat at the moment, but I'm still fine as it is, still. So it's just the fact of the matter is though, it's just the fact that it always happens every single time as soon as I'm able to prepare my recording sessions, you say. So anyway, so now we've actually returned back into this particular familiar hometown, and we can able to actually just well, talk to her, and then basically that way we're able to get ourselves a nice little reward by returning Bow Wow to her. So that way we were able to actually see what the actual smooch. Okay. You got the reward from, is that a kiss? Okay then. And also we're able to actually get our hearts back, so I believe that that might be seems the case. So now that Bow Wow is now finally returned home, so that way we don't need to able to use him for a while, because obviously that the next thing we need to do is the fact that we need to head over to the 3rd dungeon, but like I said before, I'm probably not going to do that just yet though, because as soon as we're able to head into the shop, as you can see, I'm also able to buy myself a deluxe shuffle, which actually costs about 200 rupees. So if we do manage to buy that, and also I'm also able to fancy buying these bombs right here, so we can able to actually just to get away with this particular stuff right here. So that way, it'll allow me to able to actually just able to actually access to, well, other stuff worth noting for. So I think that's something that's worth noting for. So, something about the forms of this shop, by the way, if we enter back in here, as you can see, the actual item has now been replaced by the bow. And this costs about 980 rupees. God, that's a lot. Although, something's worth mentioning for this point in time, if you dare try to able to steal the item without needing to pay any rupees at all, basically this crazy man right here, we're able to tell you something that he was trying to call you a thief. And then what happens is, if you dare enter in the shop, then basically he'll just try to able to ambush you. And guess what? You get a game over if you somehow managed able to get in contact with him if you stole the item from him. Which I'm probably not going to do that for the sake of this playthrough. Because, let me tell you something, because this is going to be a no-death run for this playthrough. Because I will try my best not to able to come across into any, no deaths whatsoever, but either way though, that's something worth mentioning for is the fact that it will get a bit chaotic at times for able to actually stumble across into like tons of enemies and all that stuff though, especially noticeable because this is on the 2D perspective, so chances are though I will get hit by a lot of enemies sometimes. Well, nowhere near as often though I don't think, but either way though, it knows what it is I guess, so... So anyways though, before we move along, I need to quickly go ahead and just see something towards over there. Or maybe in some cases though, let me just equip the shuffle, and then that way I would able to actually start doing some more of those, well, you know what I mean, the actual hunting for some bits and bobs. So just for instance, you know, secret seashells, and all kinds of items here and there. So, that way, it'll get the job done for the sake of time. So, anyways, I'll also get the thing to it. So, and we'll just grab the Guardian Acorn, so just in case we can able to defend ourselves for, like, you know, for small protection and stuff. And we'll just go ahead and equip the bomb. Because as far as I'm aware, in one of those particular... secret walls we can able to discover through from the likes of Tail Cave. Basically we couldn't get there normally, so now we can able to actually go back in there, despite the fact that it might be better like the never situation I suppose. So basically if we ended up back in here, and then basically we need to find one of those rooms that contains a cracked wall, and then that way we can able to use the bomb with. So yeah, a few things we want to explain for this point today, and that is the fact that today's date is of course the 8th of September today, in this case in 2022 today. Only one more day for this point folks, until Splatoon 3 for the Nintendo Switch will be releasing. So because of this though, in fact let me know in the comments down below for the question of the day. Are you excited when it comes to the forms of the release of Splatoon 3 tomorrow? Because I am. Because especially noticeable about the fact that, well, relatively speaking, that hopefully we're able to actually get ourselves, well, some more weapons, in addition to some more modes, if I recall, and especially noticeable with this very cool story mode, as far as I'm usually can tell. Very similar to the forms of how it does it in, well, the previous two games for sure. So, relatively speaking, though, I think... Relatively speaking, we almost pretty much at the, when it comes to the forms of hype of everything. Actually, I'll get into more details about that in a moment, because first of all, I should probably point things out, and especially noticeable about the fact that I suppose we've totally forgot to mention about this ever since the beginning portion of this Let's Play, along with the forms of the majority of Mega Man Marathon 2, and heck, even especially noticeable with the forms of in, Maxi has totally forgot to mention about during the likes of his Let's Play of Super Mario 3D All-Stars from the likes of the forms of the Super Mario Galaxy game. Excuse me, I've got something on my throat there, so I do apologize for that. So, anyway, and also applies for, recently Pac-Man, that he will definitely go back on to, you know what I mean, you know, Donkey Kong Land 3, so we can pretty much expect how this is going. Although, before I get into more details onto this though, it's important to know we need to double check in here, because I get the strong sense of feeling that we will get ourselves a bit of a nice reward if we manage able to... Oh, there it is, there's another secret seashell, so, how's that for that? So, yeah, let's get to the forms of that particular discussion that we, totally forgot to mention about, and it's better late than never, I suppose. It's been about a month ago since when it happened. Recently, the Nintendo Switch has been now sold for about, let's just say, 111.8 million units sold, as in, by the end of June. So yeah, that's actually pretty dope and everything. Despite the fact that the actual sales numbers increasing is actually getting a bit tad slower, this is mainly because the forms of the actual shortage, chips has been shortages or something like that, which it's hard to explain because it's been a very long while since I actually last heard about this, especially noticeable because, well, relatively speaking, I was being busy playing through other Switch games such as, of course, Pac-Man World Repack, and especially noticeable with the forms of other games I was really looking forward to. Like I said before, until tomorrow will be Splatoon 3, and especially noticeable until specifically next month, that we will definitely getting ourselves Mario Plus Rapid Sparks of Hope for the Nintendo Switch. So, that basically concludes the forms of, well, the first half of certain sequels from the likes of 2017 stuff. Well, mind you, about the fact the matter is, though, is the fact that, well, we already got 3 of those games that entirely, well, it's hard to explain, because, again, it has been a very long while since I actually mentioned something related to this, and, oh yeah, let's go and equip the, no, I did not mean to quit, so let's stick that up and grab another secret seashell. So, yeah, I can't even believe that the Nintendo Switch is still doing so well, especially noticeable it's almost catching up to the forms of the PlayStation 4 sales numbers, especially noticeable it's almost there towards the Game Boy, you know, the sales numbers and stuff like that. And heck, let's not forget ourselves the Nintendo DS, along with the forms of the PlayStation 2. Well, I highly doubt that, hopefully, the actual sales numbers will able to, increase dramatically, until specifically with more games to come, especially noticeable if Breath of the Wild 2 will able to actually get its release, then obviously the Switch will be dominated by them, but, not now anyway, though. Oh, and also another thing is the fact that with, Bayonetta 3, it's getting closer to its release as well, so we pretty much expect that we'll get ourselves a bit of a double dip when it comes to likely third-party supportive games, I'm pretty sure, but I digress. Oh yeah, and also something's worth mentioning for this point as well. Recently in Disney Plus, we were able to actually get ourselves the actual new release of series, although I'll get into more details on that in a second, because as you can see, we actually stumbled across these little portal pads. And basically what that does, this allows you to able to warp into different spots of the forms of the entire, calculated island. So because of this though, I think there are a grand total of like 5 of these warp zones, I'm pretty sure. Oh yeah, speaking of such though, there's another dungeon over there, but how do you get there exactly? A keyhole there, it says slime keyhole. That could be something worth noting for, especially noticeable, well, like I said before, we're not gonna do that just yet though, because we need to take care of some side quests to do, so, anyway, so while this is going on, basically, the new Disney Plus series has recently came out just recently today, and that's what appears to be Disney Pixar's Cars on the Road. And, I've seen it for a bit, and it was okay. I mean, nothing that usually most people will ask for this, especially noticeable after the events of Cars 3. And as a result of that kind of stuff, though, at least I'll take the actual Disney Plus series any day, than the likes of how it does it on any other sequels for this matter, because, well, still, don't get me wrong, I found the first film is alright, and then the third film is okay enough, but the second film, ugh, it's gross, I'm telling you. The second film is just bad. Although, the only good thing about the second film, though, is the visuals. Like, the visuals do look very, very good. So, but aside from all that stuff, though, the second movie sucks. It still sucks in general. But anyway, though, let's just go ahead and talk to this particular guy over there. and basically we need able to retrieve those golden leaves. So, and they somehow left them for the sake of the actual castle. So, yeah, I'll accept this particular challenge. I'm impressed. There are 5 leaves in all. Remember to buy a shovel on your way back, which I already did. So, yeah, for the most part though, I think we should probably take care of the forms of that particular leaves grinding. So, we'll pretty much expect that we will do this for the sake of time. So, anyway, another thing that's worth noting for is the fact that recently we actually got ourselves the actual, the sales numbers for the sake of the forms of certain Nintendo Switch games as specific updates. Like, for example, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe is still not dying, and especially noticeable because, well, relatively speaking, because it's obvious, because, you know, still planning for DLC and stuff like that, which at this point they're working on, Wave 3, as far as I'm aware. So hopefully we'll be able to get news from that at some point. And also Animal Crossing New Horizons is still on 2nd place, although I'll get into those specific numbers in a second. So anyway, in terms of the actual new games they added in for the sake of the forms of the Switch selling units as far as I'm concerned, the new ones in the lineup are Mario Strikers Battle League Football, and also Nintendo Switch Sports. And aside from that stuff though, that's pretty much about it. So anyways, let's give this banana to this particular monkey over here, because obviously monkeys do love bananas so much, which is pretty obvious for the sake of time. And eventually he'll able to actually allows us to able to actually access to the bridge, so that way we can now able to go across this particular water. So monkey business done. Bye bye. Of course. Ooh, Kiki. And that will basically give us the forms of another item we've got, which appears to be a stick. So, yeah, we'll pretty much have to look after that at some point. So, anyway, so now we can able to actually go for this area. So, anyways, let's get to it with the actual sales numbers in terms of those Nintendo Switch games sales numbers they've got so far. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe is still on 1st place. So as a result, so far, it actually receives 82 million copies sold. So, yeah, that's actually pretty cool. Especially noticeable, it really helps about the fact that the DLC now finally exists. So, yeah, it just takes so long to able to actually just reveal DLC and stuff like that, which I'm not exactly sure how do I explain this, to be honest with you. Just because it's pretty obvious, it's been a very long while since I actually did done some of my commentary, you see. So, oh god, these little specific knights or soldiers, they just outright against me. So, anyway, 2nd place goes to Animal Crossing New Horizons, almost to the point about the fact that that particular game is now got sold for like 39.38 million copies sold. Almost 40 million, so it's getting there. And 3rd place this still goes to Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. As far as at this point, they've sold the game for about 28.82 million copies sold. So yeah, that's actually pretty cool, especially noticeable with that, you know, Sora's now in the game. So yeah, super awesome. 4th place goes to The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, which at this point is now on to 27.14 million copies sold. And 5th place goes to Pokemon Sword and Shield, which at this point is now on to 24.50 million copies sold. And 6th place goes to Super Mario Odyssey, within 23.93 million copies sold. 7th place goes to Super Mario Party, which at this point that game is now on to 18.06 million copies sold. Gee, no wonder why Super Mario Party is still doing so well. I'm guessing it's because of the unique aspect about the game is with the utilizing the Joy-Con controllers, you know, kind of like the forms of the Wii remotes for, you know, Mario Party 8. So, anyway, 8th place goes to Pokemon Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, but this time it's now on to 14.79 million copies sold. So yeah, that's actually pretty swell, I have to say. Oh, and by the way, if you activate that switch, this allows us to able to actually access to the top of the castle so easily. So hopefully we'll try to able to go through there. So anyway, for 9th place goes to Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Let's Go Eevee. and that usually got like 14.66 million copies sold. And 10th place goes to Ring Fit Adventure. So far it was actually on 14.54 million copies sold. And as far as the rest of it though, nothing changed from New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe. Still got 13.31 million copies sold. So yeah, nothing different from there. And same applies to Splatoon 2. It's usually on 13.30 million copies sold. And for Pokemon Legends Arceus, still hasn't changed in terms of the sales numbers as far as I'm aware. Like, it still got about roughly 12.64 million copies sold. And as far as I'm aware, Luigi's Mansion 3 hasn't changed. Like, it's still usually 11.43 million copies sold. And for 15th place goes to Super Mario 3D World plus Bowser's Fury with a 9.43 million copies sold. And 16th place goes to still Super Mario 3D All-Stars. It's still pretty much stuck on 9.01 million copies sold, just because it's pretty obvious, because, you know, that game has been, you know, discontinued for sales numbers. So, oh, and by the way, before I get into more details onto this though, here we have this particular fellow right here, which, kind of think about it, it actually has the exactly the same, tactics as the forms of how it does it on the Link to the Past, even though despite the fact that I've almost died right there. So yeah, that is definitely the hardest enemy to deal with right here, just because that wrecking ball, or that little chain ball that he just keeps on swinging about, Jesus Louise, the damage output is way too much. But hopefully, as soon as we're able to get some more hearts exponentially, then we should able to actually feel a little bit more comfortable with it, I guess. But now we actually deal with him, so that means we get ourselves the, well, what else? Another gold leaf. So, yeah, everything else comes together for this point. As far as the other games, as far as I'm concerned, Monster Hunter Rise is still on 7.17 million copies sold, as in the forms have been at the end of last year. And Super Mario Maker 2 somehow, for some reason, hasn't increased the sales number, so it's still at 7.15 million copies sold. And for some reason, in Mario Party Superstars, still hasn't got increased the sales numbers. Like, it's still on 6.88 million copies sold so far. And that's only mainly because most fans are begging, usually they are begging for, you know what I mean, DLC to come. And it's very understandable because, well, relatively speaking, that game is actually new at the time. So, relatively speaking, I was expecting that that game will be able to get some more sales dramatically. But it doesn't, so, oh well, maybe at some point in the next few days or something like that, I have no idea. And 20th place goes to The Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening Remake. Speaking of which, as far as I'm playing the Game Boy Color version of the game, so I guess that's that. So anyway, The Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening Remake for the game, for the Nintendo Switch, as far as I'm concerned, basically, it's still sold for about 5.49 million copies sold. Oh, and also we actually received the 5th and the final gold leaf by trying to deal with that particular mini fight going on here with all that, you know, 6 holes that we have to able to stumble across into. So yeah, now we need to able to return back into that particular man that we've actually already talked to, so we now need to backtrack for a bit. So anyway, for 21st position right now, it was actually Nintendo Switch Sports. So as a result, that's one of those new games they actually listed on, for the sake of the forms of the best-selling Switch games so far. So relatively speaking, it's actually on 4.84 million copies sold so far, which is an alright start, especially noticeable because it's more actually like a spiritual successor to Wii Sports and Wii Sports Resort, and even especially noticeable with the forms of Wii Sports Club. Although, as far as I can tell, I'm pretty sure anyway though, that Wii Sports Club might not sell very well, although it seems pretty obvious because it's on the Wii U to begin with, so, which I have no comments in for the sake of time. For 22nd position, on the other hand though, we actually got Kirby and the Forgotten Land, so it looks like that so far, this is the best-selling Kirby game by far, especially noticeable because it was on 3D and everything, so yeah, that's actually pretty swell. So, yeah, that basically summarizes as such, and that particular game sold for about 4.53 million copies sold, so it's doing very, very well. which I'm very pleased about. And 23rd place or 23rd position so far, it was Clubhouse 51 Worldwide Games, and still only stuck with 4.22 million copies sold. For Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity, it's still 4 million copies sold, as in the beginning of this year, so that's actually alright. And for The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword HD, it's still stuck on 3.91 million copies sold, but at least it did pretty well, unlike the Wii version. For Mario Tennis Aces, it's still pretty much stuck on to 3.66 million copies sold. And the Japanese game I don't know about, and that was on the 27th place. And that game has usually got about 3.50 million copies sold, as in, well, March 22nd in this year. So that sure is something, alright? And 1-2 Switch, still stuck on 3.45 million copies sold, as in by the end of the worst year we've ever experienced. And for Kirby Star Allies, still stuck on 3.42 million copies sold, so yeah, I guess that's that. Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze, actually kind of think about it, between Kirby Star Allies, alongside with the forms of Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze, although I'll get more in a second, because this is where you find the Secret Seashell Shrine, and basically, the more you collect those specific secret seashells, as you can tell, that the bar is actually increasing, and as you can tell, we've reached the first level of that particular bar increasing, and basically what that means is that you get rewards if you collect even more secret seashells the more you find them. So yeah, that's actually pretty worth noting for if you're trying to go after these things. So yeah, anyway, let's get back into the forms of that particular, you know, Nintendo Switch sales numbers update so far. Between Kirby Star Allies and Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze, they're both tied within the 29th place position. So at this point, it's actually on 3.42 million copies sold between these two games combined. So yeah, that's actually pretty swell. For 31st place position is Fire Emblem 3 Houses, which at this point it was now on 3.40 million copies sold. And Among Us was actually on the 32nd position, which at this point it was actually on 3.20 million copies sold. And 33rd place position goes to Minecraft, and it was actually still on actually couldn't think about it, it's actually updated for the sake of the forms of as in May 15th for this year. So as a result, it's doing quite well actually, so it's going to be on 3.14 million copies sold, so that's actually quite impressive. And for 34th place position goes to Paper Mario the Origami King, so no updates there. And also for Metroid Dread, somehow for some reason has not updated at this point. It is actually currently still on 2.90 million copies sold, so yeah, I guess there's nothing different from there. For 36th position goes to New Pokemon Snap, which at this point is now on to 2.74 million copies sold, as far as the actual update did exist. Like, at this point, the last update on this was actually on, also in May as well. Specifically, May 15th of this year. So yeah, that's actually pretty swell. For 37th position is actually a tie between, Yoshi's Crafted World along with, ARMS. So I believe with those two games combined, they both got, 2.56 million copies sold. And for Mario Golf Super Rush was actually on 39th place position, as in, well, nothing different from there, still on 2.35 million copies sold. For 40th place position goes to Xenoblade Chronicles 2, within 2.17 million copies sold so far. Well, still hasn't changed the update or anything, because, well, it just happens. And I couldn't mention about the fact that Xenoblade Chronicles 3 might able to actually double up the sales or something. Well, it's hard to tell at this point, but hopefully we'll find out some more infos about that until specifically until, let's just say, until November. Because as far as I'm aware, that is as far as they usually always does that for the sake of, like, you know, quarters and stuff like that. So, yeah, that pretty much explains it for the sake of time. For 41st place position goes to Octopath Traveler. So at this point it's still on 2.08 million copies sold. Pikmin 3 Deluxe still on 2.04 million copies sold in 42nd place position. Mario Plus Rabbids Kingdom Battle was on 43rd place position, and it's still on 2 million copies sold. And yeah, I have no idea why they didn't actually increase the sales for that, but I digress. And the newest game in the lineup, though, as I mentioned this earlier, is Mario Strikers Battle League Football. And currently, that game is on 44th place position. So at this point, it was actually on 1.91 million copies sold. So it's a bit... Well, it's kind of unfortunate because, relatively speaking, that is the worst selling games that we've ever gone through for the sake of the Mario sports game so far. On the Switch library of all things, next to Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Games Tokyo 2020, I'm pretty sure. But either way though, it's so hard to tell at this point. So anyway, for Captain Toad Treasure Tracker, it's still got about 1.77 million copies sold, as it informs it by the end of the worst year we've ever experienced. Now it's currently on 45 place position right now. And Miitopia was actually still on 1.68 million copies sold, as in 46th position. And, well, that could be also applied onto other games, which I can't think of on top of my head, because, well, let's face it though, I think I've actually lost track of myself. In fact, I'll, actually kind of think about it though, is the fact that, actually, I'll get to more details on that and during at some point in the next video, because, well, relatively speaking, we've actually reached a second level when it comes to forms of that particular secret seashell shrine. And from here, we got another secret seashell, so that brings us a grand total of 11 of them. So, yeah, we are definitely getting there, folks, especially noticeable because, well, I can assure you that unlike the forms of how it does it on, the Switch remake of the game, basically they'll added in even more secret seashells, which as far as I'm aware will bring you to different rewards. So yeah, that might be something worth to classify for noticing this. So anyway, what was I gonna say? Oh yeah, Pokemon Mystery Dungeon Rescue Team DX is still on 1.60 million copies sold, and Big Brain Academy Brain vs. Brain is still on 1.59 million copies sold. Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition was actually still on 1.52 million copies sold. Pokken Tournament DX was actually on 1.51 million copies sold, so it's like one lesser than the forms of how it does it on Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition. And for Nintendo Labo Toy-Con 1 Variety Kit, was actually still on 1.42 million copies sold. 52 goes to Dragon Ball Fighters, and that was still on 1.38 million copies sold. Takuru non Jutsamdron Drum and Fun is still on 1.34 million copies sold. Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3 The Black Order was still on 1.31 million copies sold. For Mario Kart Live Home Circuit was still on 1.27 million downloads as far as I'm concerned with that stuff though. WarioWare Get It Together was still on, actually gotta think about it, between Mario Kart Live Home Circuit along with WarioWare Get It Together and Dragon Ball Xenoverse 2, 3 of those games were tied within 55th place position when it comes to sales numbers and stuff like that. So they managed able to, 3 of those games shared like 1.27 million copies sold. So yeah, that's interesting. For 58th place position goes to Astral Chain, which at this point it was actually on 1.21 million copies sold. Another new one in the lineup when it comes to updates and stuff like that, we have Resident Evil Revelations Collection. That's, I think so far, the entire compilation's been sold for about 1.20 million copies sold, as in the forms of the current update on June 30th. So yeah, that's actually pretty cool. And for 60th place position goes to Game Builder Garage, like as in, you know, pretty much unchanged for the actual sales numbers. So I think at this point that game has now been sold for about 1.06 million copies sold. And for Dr. Karishima's Brain Training for the Nintendo Switch, for some reason it's not been updated since then, as in, you know, the end of the worst year we've ever experienced, and that was still on 1.05 million copies sold. And finally, for 5 games into one, actually no wait, it was actually 6 games into this particular 62nd place position when it comes to Switch sales numbers. And that is the forms of Enter the Gungeon, Fitness Boxing 2, Shin Megami Tensei 5, and especially notable with Story of Seasons and Thief Simulator were all on 1 million copies sold. So yeah, that's actually quite a heck of a list. Especially notable about the fact that, well, at this point in time, still, the Switch is doing super well after like 5 years and stuff like that, so we can pretty much expect how this is going. So anyway, another thing I would like to mention is the fact that we actually got ourselves some more info from the likes of Pokemon Scarlet, and especially notable with Pokemon Violet. Like, they're obviously bringing in some more Pokemon to the table, and especially notable, we actually get ourselves our first glance of the forms of the region they're going to be experiencing on, which it appears to be inspired by Spain, because as far as I'm aware, because that's usually how the region is based off from. Like, Pau Dolar, I think is what the actual region is called anyway though. Forgive me if I somehow managed able to get that spelling wrong, so forgive me if I botched everything else to be more specific. So anyway, now we actually insert the key, which actually leads us to the next dungeon. So, but in order to get there though, we must be sure we need to backtrack for a bit, so yeah, that should be something. So yeah, because as far as I'm aware, the reason why I usually predicted that correctly, if I recall correctly, that basically that I say that the you know, Generation 9 does manage to take place in Spain instead of like you know, like Italy and stuff. Because as far as I can tell, because unlike the previous generations of Pokemon, that in Generation 1 all the way up to 4, it does manage to take place in some parts in Japan. Although I'll get into more details about that during at some point in the next video, because I'm afraid we've almost run out of time. So because of that though, at least I did manage to explain quite a number of things for the sake of time. Anyway, so before we get into more details on that, another secret seashell right there. So, and fundamentally speaking, we're pretty much almost done with those secret seashells. So, yeah, we're actually on 13 of them. So, anyway, suffice to say at this point, I think we should probably end things off at this point right here. So join me next time for more of Let's Play of The Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening DX. And that, well, basically, we're gonna have to move on to the 3rd dungeon in the game. So this will be exciting. So I'll see you guys until the next day. Later, fellas.